Today we are going to talk about a straw. This straw can help your airway, help proper tongue function, and so much more. So stay tuned and we'll get right into it. Today I have Jennifer Rooney. She holds a bachelor's degree as a dental hygienist with over 28 years of experience. She's passionate about improving lives through advances in oral health care. She's a founding member of the American Academy of Oral Systemic Health, also known as AOSH. Jennifer previously worked with the Canary System Detection Laser before joining REMastered Sleep as the national sales manager, and is very excited about helping improve airway health for millions with REMplenish. So, Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us,
Thank
and
you.
tell us a little bit more about you, what you do, and more about what we're going to talk about today.
Great. Well, thanks for inviting me along. I'm really excited to share this with everyone, and it benefits really everyone from the youngest of ages to the oldest of ages. So, as you mentioned, I'm a trained clinical dental hygienist. I worked in private practice for about 20 years, but for the last 10, I've been working in the business side of dentistry and healthcare, and it's really become my new passion. And kind of fell into this position with REMastered Sleep, and really excited to be on the cutting edge of something new.
So, how'd you fall into this position? Like, how did you hear about them?
Heard about it from a colleague who was also a member of AOSH. I was looking for work and she said, "Hey, check this group out. They were at the AOSH meeting last year." And I went on their website and, oh, that's pretty interesting stuff. And then the little chat box popped up and said, "How can we help you?" I said, "Well, I'm interested in a job." So they actually created a position for me and helping our company grow. We've grown by 50% in the last year. So it's been really exciting for us.
That is awesome. And I got introduced to it by Sarah Hornsby on one of her courses that I was taking. And I ordered it, I started using it, and then I started using it with clients and patients, and it has been amazing. So I am excited that you're going to share this with our listeners and viewers because I think that this is going to change a lot of lives.
It already has changed a lot of lives.
Yeah,
So with that, should we jump right into it?
we should. Yes.
Okay, great. So REMastered Sleep has developed a product called REMplenish, and it first came on the market for snoring. It's really touted as exercising the tissues in the back of the throat to reduce snoring, but it also does much more than that. It's really about myofunctional therapy and the exercises that it can provide to improve overall tongue posture and strengthening that overall oral musculature. And as your audience is learning, it's really important to have that strong tongue posture so that the tongue is going up so that kiddos and adults can breathe effectively through their nose. It came about by this young man, Anders Olmundson. He's our CEO and founder. He is a biomedical engineer and was working on his master's degree in medical device intervention and was looking for a health problem to solve and decided to look at sleep. And when he went to a sleep clinic, he was shocked to learn that 80% of obstructive sleep apnea patients are undiagnosed. People are walking around with obstructive sleep apnea or airway disordered breathing and don't even know it. And then when they are identified, there's a very low compliance rate when people are recommended to use the gold standard of a CPAP machine. The biggest thing for him in that event was that he had heard someone who had severe apneic events and absolutely refused to wear a CPAP machine. Now, we're never promoting that this is a replacement for a medically needed device. But in those instances where people are going to do nothing, he thought there has to be a better way. There has to be something that we can do. So he started doing his due diligence and came across some research that supported that oral myofunctional exercises benefit apneic events. So he looked at this study from 2006, this Didgeridoo study. So Didgeridoo is the instrument that you hear historically from Australia, that long instrument that makes that sound. Getting really good at making that sound.
Yeah, you
So when users played this over 5 days a week, about 20 minutes a day, all of a sudden their apneic events. And for those that aren't familiar with that, that's a break in sleeping where you stop breathing for a period longer than 10 seconds. These amounts actually reduced. So he's like, there's something here. So there's something going on with the mouth. Let's do a little bit more research. So then he started looking at myofunctional therapy research that basically shows that people undergo myofunctional therapy exercises also can have a reduction in their apneic events. And so there's definitely benefit here with the oral environment and exercising that. So lastly, one day he was watching his dog play with the peanut butter Kong and watching that tongue just really work to get the peanut butter out. And he's thinking to himself, the dog's just playing and having a good time, right? But they're getting exercise. So, what is it that people do each and every day that I can give them that same form of exercise? And that's where he's developed then the patent pending nozzle of the REMplenish system. And so if we look at the nozzle itself, on the end, there's a very small slit. And sometimes on video, it's hard to see that, but that slit then regulates or creates resistance to water. So how you're going to use this, unlike a traditional straw where you suction with your cheeks, you're going to actually use your tongue. If I were to suction with my cheeks, I'm actually going to collapse this and I'm not going to get any water. I'm not going to get my reward if I use it incorrectly. So what I'll do is I'll put it in my mouth with my lips up to the bump out. We don't want to go over the bump out because if we do that, we actually open our jaw joint and we're activating our joint and that can cause discomfort. So we only go up to the bump out. Once it's in our mouths, we're going to use our tongue and we're going to push that up to the roof of the mouth. And then we're going to place our tip of our tongue in what we call the spot, basically right behind the front teeth. And when I release that pressure, it's going to pull water in my mouth. So every time I push up, I'm working the back of the tongue, which is working on that important tongue up posture. And once I release that, I'll swallow, and then that's going to work my neck. So I'm going to do a series of what I like to call tongue push-ups. I'm going to push up 3 to 5, 6 times, swallowing after each repetition and bringing that water into the mouth. So I'm going to pause the share for a moment and I'm going to demonstrate that. So we have our steel bottle that has the straw that comes with it floating freely in it. And then we also have the straws available separate. And we'll talk more about that at the end, options. So here's the steel bottle, the straw's right there. I'm going to bring that up to my mouth. I'm not going to bend over and hunch over. And then I'm going to do that pumping action. And what you'll see is movement in my neck and probably some in my cheeks. And again, I'm not suctioning with my cheeks. I'm using my tongue. And doing that 4 to 6 times, I probably get as much water as if I were to take a drink out of a regular glass. Now, sometimes people will say to me, I don't feel like I get any water. Well, that tells me 2 things. Number one, you're probably suctioning with your cheeks and you're collapsing that, or you're not pumping your tongue enough. You're maybe just doing it once. And we need to do that repetitive exercise to get the full benefit.
And that pumping of the tongue also mimics what you would do if you were nursing, correct?
It does. It does. And so let me talk about age appropriateness for this. Right now, I would say anyone who's 10, 11, and 12, very appropriate for this size of nozzle. With that in mind, however, we are developing a child-specific product that will be released in 2023. However, I do have young children who have effectively used this. So if you have a young child who needs benefit now, I would say go ahead and get this because they're not going to put their mouth on it as far because they're going to hit their gag reflex. They're going to come on to it just where they need to, and then they're going to mimic that same motion, probably that most kids are familiar with from nursing.
Mhm. Yeah.
So back to snoring for a minute. In our first usability study in 2020, in that study, 93% of respondents had an improvement in their snoring, and they also, as a result, were less tired. And what happens is as those tissues are exercised, instead of being flabby and flapping around, they actually get firmer. And that firmness, when we lay back to sleep, is not going to vibrate as much. So what the nozzle's really doing is working on proper swallow function, which we all need. And it's so important to begin this at a young age so we don't develop a dysfunctional swallow. So we're putting the tip of the tongue right behind the front teeth on what we call the spot. And as we pump that tongue, we're actually causing that tongue to follow along the roof of the mouth, pushing the food and the fluid down the throat in one fluid motion. As I mentioned before, when we lay back to sleep, then with those tissues that have been exercised, they're going to be firmer and tighter. And so they're not going to vibrate when people lay back to sleep. And in a future study that we'll be doing next year, we're going to be trying to correlate that directly to obstructive sleep apnea as well. So it makes sense, but the science isn't quite in yet. So as we're targeting the myofunctional therapy and the factors of sleep. As I mentioned, we're already addressing the soft tissues and the positional, but really important with children, we know that when we get the tongue up in the arch, we have proper arch form and proper arch growth. It reduces the amount of crowding that kids have, and their jaws grow forward, which actually opens up the airway in the back of the throat when things are growing properly forward. So it is so important to have our children be getting that tongue up and continuing to exercise it even post nursing. And then with neuromuscular function, sometimes in the back of the throat, our muscles fight each other. They're actually going in opposite directions. And as we exercise them, they're going to start going in the same direction. So again, we're going to be able to push the food and the fluid down the throat effectively instead of fighting each other and combating each other. These are a couple of our testimonials. The first one, she's a dentist who works with facial pain. And she says patients love the product that's easy and convenient and portable, and it encourages consistent use. You know, in order for any of us to have a benefit to anything that we do, we have to do it regularly, right? And using something like REMplenish makes it simple and almost brainless. You're just drinking water throughout the day, but yet you're getting exercise. And then this other comment was from a user who, again, was targeting snoring, that just 2.5 months, they recorded almost no snoring episodes. And also, as a result, when you snore less, you feel better, you sleep better. And they were using an app called Snore Lab to be able to track those changes for themselves. This is Dr. Zaghi. He's with the Breathe Institute in LA, and he does tongue tie releases. And I'm sure, Sherry, you've been sharing that with people on your podcasts. But tongue ties are where the tongue is held down and not able to go up to the roof of the mouth. And so this can be a really effective tool before someone has a tongue tie release to get the tongue strong so that after the release, they can actually continue to exercise the tongue and push it up. Now, there would be one situation where a really severe tongue tie, where the tip of the tongue is really held down at the front of the mouth. That person would probably need to have that addressed before they could utilize REMplenish afterwards as a form of kind of physical therapy post exercise. This is a long statement, but this is my neighbor. She's 21 years old and she was having very significant jaw pain, to the point where it was quite debilitating for her. And as she and I were visiting one day about REMplenish, and I was sharing how it helps get the tongue up and those benefits, she actually had clued in herself prior to that that I thought my tongue was low, and I thought that's why I was having jaw pain. So this is not something that we specifically research, but I hear this from users time and time again, that exercising the oral musculature has helped with their jaw pain. So I gave her a couple of simple exercises. She ordered the water bottle and she began using it. And within 3 weeks, she was in zero pain. So young woman who now can live her life comfortably and not be nagged by chronic jaw pain.
That's awesome.
You know, this slide is a little clinical, Sherry, but you and I are well versed in it. But it talks about how do we recognize airway disordered breathing. And these are some simple things for people to kind of keep an eye on. If we look at general facial presentations, venous pooling or the dark circles under the eyes, we always say, well, they're not sleeping. Well, yeah, they're not sleeping, and that's why they have that dark circle. So that's an indication that they may not be getting restful sleep. If your lips are dry, you might be mouth breathing. Some And then just simple things with sleep questionnaires. Are you sleepy during the day? Do you have some behavioral issues related to ADD, ADHD, aggression, chronic allergies? Even bedwetting is a really common sign of airway disordered breathing. And then there are also oral manifestations that your hygienist and your dentist can speak to you about as well.
Yeah.
So when someone's getting ready to use REMplenish, there's a couple considerations to keep in mind. We've talked about that tongue tie. So if someone is tongue tied, that's going to have to be addressed by a professional with the guidance of how to implement the REMplenish. And then for those who have trouble finding the spot, getting the tongue up to that spot, they might need some, again, coaching from a myofunctional therapist professional. How do we get that tongue up there and then start to use this at the appropriate time? Someone who is a very narrow arch, and this is probably going to be in our older population because they didn't have the benefit of any braces, but when the arch is really narrow and pitched, it's going to be hard for them to be able to push their tongue up to the roof of the mouth to create that suction I spoke about before. So again, tongue here, roof of the mouth here, and I'm basically pushing the tongue up against the roof of the mouth to create a suction that I then release and allows the water to come in. Um, People have sometimes dysfunctional swallows. They might thrust their tongue out of their mouth, And with that, again, with myofunctional therapy and coaching, we need to get the tongue back in. But once the tongue is in the mouth, then we can start to tell our brains to put our tongue right here. And we're going to help exercise them out of that reverse tongue thrusting. And then the other common one is reverse swallows. So someone might push their tongue forward, but not actually outside the mouth. And so if we move them from a forward action with the tongue to an up and down action, we're actually going with proper swallow function. This nozzle is made out of a food grade silicone. So if there was an allergy to silicone, that would be a contraindication to its use. So typically we recommend 1 to 2 bottles a day, 25-ounce bottles, or again, any other glass or water bottle or tumbler that you're using about 5 days a week. We consider that to be regular use. And after about a month's time, people are going to start to feel an improvement. They might notice their tongue up more. They might notice that they're sleeping better. Someone who has really poor oral posture, and I was one of those individuals, you would actually notice a change much more quickly. 1 to 2 weeks, you can start to notice an improvement. And then after about 6 months, it levels off. And that's going to vary from individual to individual. And then it's maintenance. It's continuing to use the product and the exercises to make sure that the tongue stays strong so that we don't regress. At a very minimum, that would be about 2 bottles a week. But if you're using it consistently and regularly, I would never decrease my usage. I would just continue to use it at that same amount of time. And so we have a couple of products available for you to try. One is our steel bottle. Like I mentioned, steel bottle, it's double walled insulated, holds the water cold for 24 hours, and it comes with the straw that can be removed and put elsewhere to use. And then you can also have the straw simply separate that you can put into an existing glass. You have one there, right, Sherry, that you
I do.
use?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that can be very portable and can go into any existing water bottle. And so with Sherry, we have developed a coupon code for you to be able to go onto our website with the QR code and place an order and save 10% on any of those products.
Yes,
So
thank you so
Sherry,
much for that.
what questions do you think we should answer for the audience?
So I think you answered a lot of the questions as who should use it. I think we should talk about cleaning the straw as well because
Oh,
it
yes,
comes with a little tool to clean it.
absolutely.
So how often we recommend cleaning it and
So we recommend only using water through the straw, just because other materials are going to have the predilection to form mold. You simply remove the nozzle from the end. I don't have my cleaning tool here, but Sherry, you can hold that up. We're going to use that through each end of the straw and clean that with the cleaning brush, just like that. Thank you, Vanna. And then on the nozzle itself, from the underside, I will take that cleaning straw and I will put it in there. And then I will actually kind of squeeze my nozzle around that brush, being careful with the slit on the end that I don't puncture that or open that further. Because if you widen the slit, you will decrease the amount of resistance that you get. And warm soap water is the best. It is also dishwasher safe.
okay. And the bottle is dishwasher safe as well.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we recommend at least once a week cleaning this out if you're using water. If you were using something else in it, then you would want to be cleaning it more frequently.
Okay, that sounds good. And you said that the bottle that's specifically for children will be coming out in next year,
In
2023.
2023, yes. And
Um,
that will be the bottle for sure will be more right sized. There will be a few minor modifications to the nozzle. But again, with younger kids right now, they're just not going to put their mouth on it as far because they're going to know where their gag reflex and they're going to stop.
yes, yes.
They're pretty
So
smart, those little people in our lives.
yes, they are amazing. And I mean, this straw, when you were talking about tongue thrust and thrusting their tongue forward, this straw has been amazing for those patients. So if you have that reverse swallow or the tongue that comes out, I see a huge difference. And some of them I had been doing myofunctional therapy with for weeks. And then when I introduced the straw, they were like, oh my gosh, this is a game changer for us. So that's when I started to become excited and start sharing it more because I was seeing my patients respond so positively to adding this to the therapy.
So
So
would you say that in that experience, it just became like all the things that you've been trying to teach them, it just kind of came together because they had that tool to do what
correct.
you're asking them to
Yes,
do?
it made it more natural. So I actually started introducing it sooner in the therapy now because it helps you know where to put your tongue without having to think about it. So
Yep.
that's what's good because we're changing habits with myofunctional therapy. And so the straw helps create the habit a little bit faster and you don't have to think about it as much as long as you know how to use it correctly. So I think it definitely helps in that aspect of using it.
Yeah,
Um,
I think the brainless aspect of this is just one of the best things. You know, you keep it next to you at your desk, you keep it in your car, you know, wherever it is that you're going to use it most often. And every time you take a drink, you're exercising. I mean, gosh, I wish every exercise that we had to do for the rest of our bodies was that
was
easy.
that easy? Yeah, and you could just keep it with you, and
Yeah,
it's good for maintenance. Like you said, it's great for maintenance because let's face it, even though we know better, we don't always do better.
right.
So we get out of habits, and so this is one thing that it just creates a subconscious habit.
I want to add just two other minor things about the straw itself. So, the straw itself, there's nothing therapeutic about this. The therapy is really happening in the nozzle. So, if you needed this to be shorter, you could carefully trim it. It is metal for a shorter glass. And it is an 8 millimeter diameter. So, if you needed it longer, you could purchase another straw that's 8 millimeters, and that nozzle would also fit and integrate onto it.
And you had the plastic ones. Did you decide that the metal was better?
The plastic ones we hope to have available again in the future. In the world that we live in, supply chain is a problem, and
Right.
we're just unable to get the bottles at this point in time. So,
Okay. I was wondering why that switched. So COVID, yes, COVID did
thank you,
happen.
COVID.
And you think, is there anything else that you think that moms should know specifically in using the straw or entering it if they're not working with a therapist that recommends it?
Well, because it is a potential choking hazard, if your children are 4 or younger, they need to be using this supervised, for one. And the other thing would just be to watch how your child is using it. Make sure that their tongue looks like it's going up and you don't see their jaw pushing forward, because we don't want them to develop an improper swallow using that product as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Because I know that some of you listening out there will want to purchase a straw and may not be working with a therapist. So if you notice some of these things that we talked about in this, definitely look for someone that offers myofunctional therapy and at least get an evaluation because that will help your child or yourself even more when you're using these tools that we're talking about. Anything else that you would like to add?
I would just in that follow up to what you were saying, seeking help. If you think you have a tongue thrust, if you think your child, or not a tongue thrust, if you think your child has a tongue tie, please get it evaluated by a professional. You know, if they've had trouble nursing in the past, if they've been colicky, if they've been fussy, um, if they're having troubles drinking, using this or any other device, it's a really good thing to have screened either by an oral health professional or a myofunctional therapist.
Yes, and to add to that, if they're little and they've had problems with their ears, ear infections, tubes in their ears, that's another sign that they may have something as far as a myofunctional disorder. So definitely get that looked at.
You
So
know, Sherry, I have a 14-year-old and a 17-year-old, and you are speaking my language. I had tubes in both of my kids. I wish I would have known about this then. So, everyone who's listening, you are so lucky to have the tools and the resources that we have today, that we know that myofunctional therapy is a benefit. That just wasn't a thing when my
no.
kids were young, right?
So Jennifer, thank you so much for
Yeah,
coming
thank you.
on and sharing the straw and telling us a little bit about how it can help and what it does and about the company. And I can't wait until the cup comes out next year. So hopefully when that comes out, we can come back on and talk about that.
That would be
Then.
wonderful. Yeah,
Yes, that would be. Thank you so much.
thank you.
I hope this was helpful. This is an amazing tool. For my daughter and for myself, we both have some oral aversion, meaning that we don't like to put certain foods, textures, things in our mouth. And also, what I found with some of my patients is some of the kids have a gag reflex. When they put things in their mouth, they gag easily. What I found with this straw is you can start to put it, I'm going to use my cup. You can start with just putting it in just a little bit with your tongue up on the roof of your mouth. Then you can move gradually down to this part of the straw and get the whole thing in your mouth so your tongue goes up on the roof of your mouth. And it definitely helps. So if you get the straw, you can ease into it. Just push your tongue up and then gradually move it until you can get in. If you have a child with a gag reflex or you have a gag problem yourself, if you have trouble swallowing pills, this will help as well. Because if you're having trouble swallowing pills, it usually has a lot to do with a gag reflex and your tongue is protecting your airway so the pill doesn't go down the wrong pipe, right? It doesn't go down your airway instead of your esophagus. So this straw has a lot of amazing benefits. I can't wait until the straw comes out for kids. But again, like she said, you can cut the straw down and put it in a smaller cup, just a regular cup like this one. Um, and then just be careful when you clean it. I don't know if you could see it before, but this end comes off. This goes all the way through, so you can clean it. You can clean it from both ends, but like she said, just make sure that you use water in it so it doesn't get mold in it. This just pops on. You can clean this as well, but remember that this has this little metal thing on the top, so be careful when you're poking it through that you don't poke it through the silicone and create a hole, because if you get a hole in it anywhere else besides where the hole is meant to be, it's not going to suck properly. So these are all things that you can use. You can just get the straw and put it in a regular cup. You can get the bottle like she had. These bottles, they're having a hard time getting just because of shipping supply. But this is another amazing tool, just like the Myomunchie is a tool for kids. So if you have, again, if you have kids that have a gag reflex, using the straw or starting them out on the straw will maybe help work them up to being able to use a Myomunchie that they can actually chew on both sides. So again, if you're not working with a myofunctional therapist and you have some questions, you can get a hold of me. You can go to Airway Circle and find a therapist in your area. If it doesn't seem like I'm a person that is a right fit for you, there are all kinds of speech pathologist myofunctional therapists that you can find on their Airway Circle directory. So we are here to help whoever is your person that's going to help you. I just want to see you be able to get help. I want our kids to be off medications. I want them to sleep better, stop wetting the bed, all the things that we struggle with as moms, and we don't know why. And because we weren't told why, or because we didn't know, or because this information isn't out there until you have a child that has a problem and you're searching on Google to try to find a solution to your problem. So again, I hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching. A healthy mouth is a healthy body and a happy, healthy life. And for me, it all starts in the mouth. And where is your tongue? And speaking of where is your tongue, we're going to talk about a little bit more about that next week. Where is your tongue? Where is it resting? What should you be looking for? What is the proper tongue position? And we're going to go into that, dive a little more deeply into that, and how where your tongue is positioned affects a lot of things that are happening not only in your mouth, but in your body, because after all, it's all connected. We're not just a floating head. And so we need to look at the body as a whole. So thanks for listening. Until next time.